Hi, my name is Leo Chang. I'm a documentary filmmaker based in Taipei and San Francisco. And today I'm very excited that Richard Ladkani, the director of the beautiful and powerful film YANUNI, has invited me to chat with you, Richard. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
thank you.
so really, we're just chatting like we've, known of each other for so long. And it's really great to finally to be able to meet virtually face to face and have a little chat. So yeah,
Likewise. Thank you.
congratulations. Yeah, on such a beautiful film.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time in the making, and thank you so much for doing this. I know it's very late in Taiwan, so really appreciate it.
Oh, no, glad to do it. So how did this film come about? You said it's a long time in coming. So
Well, it started in 2019 when I saw all these images on CNN, and the New York Times were talking about the Amazon is burning, and they were talking about so and so many football fields every day are being destroyed. And I was literally thinking, this is one of the biggest ecosystems in the world that's going up in flames. And somehow there's public outcry about it, but I didn't feel that people understood the gravity of the situation and how that affects the entire planet. And I also thought there is no big film that I'm aware of the last 20 years or so that really connects me to the issue in a deep and meaningful way. So I did some research, and of course, I found many TV documentaries and lots of things on, Nat Geo and Discovery Channel and so forth. But there was not like a full-on feature-length topic. And as this is what I'm focusing on with my films like Sea of Shadows and The Ivory Game, they're always about big issues, and I spend a lot of time going deep. I felt that there is room for, a film, a proper feature-length documentary that goes deep. And I started researching. I was like starting from zero basically, and I quickly found out something that was, that I didn't even understand because I didn't know much about the Amazon. Is that the problem, like, of preserving the forest is not just to stop logging. You need to take the indigenous people into consideration because they are actually the forefront, like the front line of defense of the Amazon, and that this is very much a human catastrophe because all these indigenous people were being murdered and killed as by the land grabbers. And then I thought, wow, so this would not be some film about trees, and loggers. This would be about indigenous people defending the forest. And so that's where my research kind of focused on, and that's when I, you know, found out about Juma Xipaia, who's now the main character in this film. Um, and I just, I wanted to meet her and find out more about her because she seemed to be this very interesting indigenous leader that has been at the forefront of this for like most of her life, most of her from teenage to now. And she survived, attempts on her life, and she lives in danger. And I thought this could be a really interesting person, and that's how it sort of all began. Yeah, that was in 2019, end of 2019. Yeah,
so 6 years ago. I mean,
yeah,
Juma is such a spectacular character. I mean, for me, one of the most powerful things about this film is that you are exploring the environment. You are talking about a very powerful issue, but it's squarely focused on this woman, this unique, charismatic woman, and her personal life. But you're so engrossed by her personal life,
mm,
and through her you learn about these really important issues, right? Like this is exactly what people always say, that you should have films that you want to watch or you feel connected to, instead of films that kind of preach at you and tell you what
exactly.
you should or should not do. I mean, talk a little bit about how you
Yeah.
developed the Juma character.
Well, what happened was that I felt very fast that I didn't want to make a film about the topic. It shouldn't be topical. This is the Amazon, and this is what's going on, and this is how we need to protect it. So I didn't want to make an encyclopedia of like the Amazonian problem. I felt this film should be different, and it should be entirely told through the eyes of one human being that really connects us deep. And I was looking for someone very special who can connect to Western audiences in a meaningful way, and who has also so much to her story that it wouldn't just be a single story that is so unique that it does not represent the problem and the bigger issue. And in Juma, I found this person because on one hand, she has dedicated her life to fighting, to the resistance movement, and she really takes it comes with all these terrible things like assassination attempts on her life, like basically taking her out. She survived six of them, and that's basically when I met her. She had just survived the sixth attempt on her life, and it was also for me very quickly very clear that this would have to involve a lot of security issues,
Mm,
because if she lives in so much danger, how is this film gonna actually help her and help the cause and not cause more harm? So this was very quickly on our very very first conversation. I realized this is the real deal. I'm dealing with life and death right now. Like if I insert the idea of a film production into her life, we have to be super careful, and it has to be worth it for her. So from the get-go, I presented the film as an opportunity to really also protect her through like, I don't want to use the word fame because it's wrong, but through the status of recognition. If millions of people know what you're doing and who you are, you will become a harder target to take out without anyone noticing. People are going to think again, do we harm this woman who's been, standing on the red carpets of New York and Los Angeles events, because it's going to blow up in the media and they will hunt us down without mercy. So this status of recognition, worldwide recognition in the media and the news, can really protect you. And I've seen that in my previous films, that this is why people are still alive, is because they are news anchors, or there's so much out there
right.
that it would cause huge problems if they were harmed. The other thing I noticed was, I'm non-Indigenous, I'm not from your world, and you are a storyteller. When you see the film, you will see how beautiful she weaves together like poetry and thoughts, and her way of projecting the world and seeing it is so beautiful that you just want to listen to her. And I thought, you should be the prime storyteller here. And I would like to help you make your film, tell your story. That's why she became a producer on the film, so that she can have a meaningful role and also be represented properly. And I really wanted her to feel in control. You're going to steer the ship. I'm just going to use all my skill sets and the technology and all my creativity that I can bring to the table to make you tell your story to the world. This should be an Indigenous film, led by you, by your community, by your people. And that was also very important. And she really liked that. She was very intrigued by this proposition, that I didn't put a narrative on her, that I said, this is how I think the film should be. No, I said, you will lead the way. I don't know how many years we will be doing this film. I don't know where it's going to go, but if you allow me to enter into your life and follow you around, and if you just go out there open-mindedly and start telling your story, I think we will have an amazing film. In the end, it took 6 years, but I think it was worth it. Yeah.
At what part of her journey did you enter the story? I mean, there was the sort of the Ministry of Indigenous People, right? Which is what,
Yeah.
23? But
That's
she was
about
already
30
in a
minutes
team.
in.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So I entered it when she was in the resistance movement, a powerful leader in the resistance movement in 2021. She was fighting the then Bolsonaro regime, this president that was really going hard against indigenous people. He insulted them. He was telling land grabbers to take as much as they can. Like he was like the worst nightmare for the Amazon and its people. So I got into this story right in the middle of that. But then 2 years later, so it was sort of like a slow start, because I was trying to find a narrative for the story, and I just said, I'm gonna be a fly on the wall. She was in this big protest march in Brasilia where they were tear gassed and beaten and shot, and that's how the film opens. And it was actually the first scene of the whole film that we shot was that scene. So it's really in chronological order. This was the first taste of what it meant to be following her around, and that's how it started. And we had no idea that there would be a regime change, that Lula would come in a year and a half later, that she would be appointed as Secretary of Indigenous Rights, that there would be a creation of an Indigenous ministry, the first in the world, like all these things. I didn't know who her husband was, that she would get pregnant. So it was really like, let's just go. And little did I know what a roller coaster ride it would be, to be honest.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you got there at the right time. But you already mentioned this. I mean, one of the things that I reacted to so strongly, just as a filmmaker, is like this is not the type of film that I make. And I don't even begin to understand for you to be the director and the cinematographer for a
Yeah,
film that you're kind of confronted with, threats of violence, with chaos, with like logistical. I mean, I don't even know how to deal with that. And at the same time, so focused on the cinematic elements of the
yeah,
film. I mean, talk a little bit about some of your processes or some of the sort of the rules that you give yourself, some of the tips, how
right.
you would make this happen.
Well, I've learned over the years, and I've done it for almost 30 years now. So I started in 96, I went to film school, right? So it's been 50 films in the making. And I've learned along the way that the number one thing that matters is story, you know? Like nothing can beat story structure and storyline. So when I met her and I knew we were gonna go on a crazy ride, my number one objective was stay close to her. Don't get distracted by other characters who enter the story. Don't try to do an encyclopedia of, don't become topical. Stay as personal as possible. Because my experience over the past years, especially also dealing with social or climate or environmental issues, that are also always topical, is people don't want you to explain the world to them. They just want to see a good film. They want to be carried away by a character that they connect with, that they really resonate with. And if you have a strong, powerful personal story, then everything else will come with it. Like people will be interested to learn more about this or that side of her life in this way. They will be keen to know more about who's that husband or what is this ministry about. But it's always starts and ends with her. So my top of line of advice to me and also to my team, because I did use second cinematographers and other people sometimes to help me out, was whatever happens, you stay with her. That is our story. And try my approach was also to get as close to her as possible, to enter her family life, to become part of her family in a way. For example, I had to learn Portuguese. I didn't speak any Portuguese when I started this film, but I knew she didn't speak any English, that if I want to be inserted into her life, I need to be able to talk to her and talk to her friends and her family. So I took an intensive course in Portuguese, and within 6 months I was fluent enough to speak it. And that was a little, another little piece of the key to become so intimate. And I remember, like, by the end of it, there were some personal scenes between her and her husband where I was thinking, my God, do they even know I'm still here filming? This is so personal. They're having a fight, they're like kissing and arguing and this and that, and I'm standing in like a dark bathroom, like behind the the door, filming the whole thing, thinking there's microphones everywhere. Like, are they even aware? So when actually I made myself noticeable again, and I said, so I think I will go home now. And it was like 10 p.m. They're like, oh, you're still here, and they were laughing, and I was like, yeah. I was wondering if you noticed, and she's like, Richard, you have become like that piece of furniture in the corner that you just forget exists. So So
Well,
so
that
I
is the
thought,
highest the level of compliment, I think, as a documentary filmmaker, cinematographer,
yeah.
to be called a piece of furniture, right? When did
Yeah.
Hugo become obviously a strong supporting character for you? Was it
Well,
pretty obvious from the beginning, or?
not at all. It was basically, I had no idea who he was, and I didn't understand what he was even doing. Like that scene you saw in the film, it was just as it happened. I picked him up. We picked him up from the airport, and he had this big case that looked like a gun with him, and he looked like military. And I was like what does he really do, and he works for government. I knew that, and security maybe. But then when I understood who he is, because she was very secretive about her life, everything was a process. Like, she didn't know if he was comfortable that I knew what he was doing. It had to be first kind of like, we had to clear the air, he had to get to know me. And when I understood that he is this, like, frontline fighter, the leader of a special team of environmental soldiers, works for the government, that goes after the people that threaten Juma's life, but also all the indigenous people's lives, by like invading and killing. Like, he goes after these people. I was like, wow, maybe there's a way I could go with him to show what the front line looks like, what it is. This devastation is really like, what does it feel like? What does it look like? How are, you know, these devastating areas where they poison the rivers with mercury, and they bring in these huge machines and ships, and it was just storytelling for me. I had no idea, and I could never go there with Juma, because they would simply kill her on site. If an
Hmm.
indigenous approaches, he would be spying or someone, and they will just hunt you down and kill you, because that's what they do. So with him, it opened up this possibility of showing the other side. But I had to be very careful. Like, I was very much aware that his narrative could overwhelm my Juma storyline, like the woman story, her story. But again, it was so important to open up that other line of defense that was part of her life very much. That's her husband. He risks his life just as much as she does every day to protect the Amazon. And I felt the urge and the need to go with him. And it's sort of when it became overwhelming that I really needed to understand the devastation. That's when I asked him, could I go with you? And
Hmm.
Juma agreed very much. She was like, you should go. You have to see this, because they will even talk about it when he comes back. She would be afraid for his life. Do you really have to go again? It's so dangerous, these people, and I captured some of that, but I needed to see it. So that's when that story opened up, and that was extremely challenging for me to do that, to tell that story, like physically and also from a security standpoint.
Were there any moments where you felt like you and the team and your team, might be in some kind of a danger? I mean, that stuff looked like, I mean, it felt like deployment for me, right? There, he's going into a war
100%.
zone. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that. The it was actually just me who had to go in there. So they didn't allow any extra personnel, just one person, because I was taking the seat of a soldier on the helicopter. So they said usually there are 5 men per helicopter. They go in 2 helicopters, so that's 10 people. And if I come along, they're down 1 man. So already their security is lowered. So basically they wouldn't allow a second person, like that would be too high of a risk. So they said, you can come along, but you have to be alone. And we will not be able to protect you because we're not your bodyguards. We're there on a mission. You have to watch out for yourself. If shots are fired, you lie on the ground and you wait until it's over, or you try to get away, but stay low to the ground. And they were basically like telling me, it's at your own risk. This is high risk what we're doing. If you want to come along, fine, but really watch out for yourself. And I was thinking, should I really do this? Like, it's gonna be hard. But in a way, I discussed it with my wife, who's the producer of the film, Anita, and we were like, we have to hope for the best, prepare well, get the right gear, and get a bulletproof vest and all these things, and then just go in, and hopefully it's going to be okay. And I went on 4 missions with them. Each one was 2 weeks long, and it was intense. We had to sleep in the jungle, often like on a beach, like with nothing, like I had to charge my own gear, fly my drone, do the sound, offload, the everything. So the technology side of it, and also the survival side of it, and then the security aspects of it, of being tear gassed or being, getting caught in this almost, disaster where the ship blew up and we couldn't get away in time. And so there was some challenges, but in the end, I think it was really worth it because it opened up the story to its full potential, while at the same time I felt keeping it within the very personal Juma storytelling that I set out to do with her. Right.
There were some challenges, you said. It just sound like some challenges to me. I have one question about, you said that you ended up bringing on Juma as a producer, and you really, it sounded like a sort of a collaboration with your subject, right? Which is
Yeah.
one of the major shifts in documentary filmmaking in the last 5 years or so.
Right.
Like sort of more of a collaborative authorship. Were there
Yeah.
any challenges there? I mean, she's such a strong personality. Was there any uh like thing that she kind of pushed back on? And also, how do you balance this? Like, you don't want this to turn into more of a conventional commercial celebrity film, but at the
Right.
same time, you want to honor her story. Like, how do you keep the balance here?
It was surprisingly easygoing in terms of like working between us. Yes, there were challenges. For example, you really have to understand the indigenous way of timelines and also the way things are done. Everything is very much about a collective experience. So if
Mm,
I ask her a question that I need an answer on quickly, she will have to discuss it with her side of the people. She will have to bring the community in if it's a bigger question, her parents, her family, her sisters, her husband, and it would always take time because this is how it is. And if you're impatient, then you're going to fail. So maybe another reason why it took 6 years is because the process of finding trust and doing it the right indigenous way meant kind of subduing yourself to these indigenous timelines that just take stress out of the equation. Yeah, there is no pressure. Like the more pressure you put, the longer it will take.
mm.
So that was a big learning curve for us. How do you run a film production on a schedule when this is the way you need to proceed? So the learning curve was very steep, but I must say, Juma and I really connected at all times. So there was not a single moment where I was taking the story in the wrong way, or she would take it in a way where I didn't feel it was right. It was always collaboration, figuring it out, talking a lot, like never stop talking to each other. That was very important, like regularly. Like if we wouldn't talk every 2 weeks, it would turn into a problem because she would live in her life, I would live in my life, and we would we would drift apart, and then I would have to bring things back together because we had to do it in this collaboration, collective mindset. And I think that's how it worked out very well. It could have gone wrong on many levels. I needed to be super patient and really accept that the way of the forest, is not the way of the speedy entertainment industry that we are used to and know. So it's all about transparency and respect, mutual respect for each other, and really making sure everyone understands what's going on and that she trusts me in making the right decision when I have to make some decisions, and that I trust her as well. And again, she's a real storyteller. She understands narratives. You can see it in the film when she speaks. She starts in an intriguing way, her speech, and it goes and becomes very emotional and then has a perfect, finish. Like she understands the narrative structure of a film very well. So we were in sync. I was very happy that we showed the film in her territory for the very first time before it was finished. So the first fine cut was presented to her people in the forest in Karima village. There was like 30 or 40 of them. and they gave we did a Q&A. I was there with a Zoom link, and she was there in person, and we talked to the community, and they gave feedback on the edit. And so the collective experience was really lived and celebrated. And I think that's why we have the movement behind us. We have the Indigenous community behind us. We have her and her family behind us. She's coming on her fourth trip now to the US to present a film, because for her, YANUNI is a film from the territory to the world. And that's how she talks about it, and that's how we talk about it. And I think we achieved that objective. Yeah.
It is a truly powerful film. Congratulations once again. And I know that you still got a bunch of screenings coming up, so I hope folks get to see it if they haven't yet already in theaters or online somewhere, in the screening room. So I think folks will
Yeah.
really enjoy it. It's a thrilling and it's a sort of beautiful, beautiful film. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leo.